What is up, everybody? It is Chase here with Dolphins vs. World, and thank you for tuning in. I'm joined always in the producer booth by our lovely producer, Joel, and we got Anthony, my co-host, with me. Anthony, how are you doing?
If you can name me a dull moment that this team has experienced since 2019, I'll give you like $50. Dude, because there isn't one. Brian Flores gets hired. We have the whole tanking situation, trading Minka and Laramie. The next year comes up. We draft two, and there's all that. He starts randomly. We're in playoff conversation. The Deshaun Watson stuff. We start off the season horribly. We end the season incredibly. Brian Flores gets fired. Mike McDaniel comes in. We get Tyreek. We get Teron Armstead. Last season is the roller coaster that it is. And then this season, I mean, it's just like every running back under the sun is up for grabs right now for the Dolphins. So it's just like, dude, we haven't had a dull moment in 4 years with this franchise, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, definitely not. I mean, there's some franchises that have just had boring moments, so I'm not one to complain. Like you said, it's never dull being a Dolphins fan. Just when you think they're out of surprises, just when you think when one door closes, another opens. Dalvin Cook goes, and it's Jonathan Taylor. It is just mayhem. It's mayhem. Even in the midst of camp, when we're trying to get ready for a season, it still seems like we're linked to every player somehow, and it's crazy. It's just always the Dolphins somehow. I don't know if that's because of Stephen Ross always likes to have a splash, what the reason is specifically, but I do thank them for never giving us shortage of stuff to discuss, not only with you, but just with other Dolphins fans and my friends. You could always count on the Dolphins to be a topic of discussion when you're there. But yeah, I mean, we'll get right into it here. The topic of pretty much now it's almost been the whole week. I believe it was Tuesday when Jonathan Taylor was given permission to seek a trade. And I don't have too much to say on this. I know you'll have a lot more to me, so I'll just give my thoughts real quick. When he says permission to seek a trade, we never know what the truth is. I mean, as everyone knows, everyone's been fooled on the internet plenty of times. Like, I'm no stranger to that. Like, so many people are just like, oh, my source says this. He's going to be a Dolphin. This is the number. This is that. It is just crazy, like how quickly people just instantly share their opinion and share what's been going on. So I'm going to share mine here of this. Personally, obviously, Jonathan Taylor would be a massive upgrade to this team and help us. He's a superstar in the NFL. I'm personally not the biggest fan of running backs, so I'm not too crazy about this, and more so not because I don't think he'd be a great addition, but it just does not make sense to me. We're 2 weeks from the first game of the season, and to get a player like Jonathan Taylor at this point, who would be in any team in the NFL pretty much, besides like a few, like the Browns maybe have a better running back, maybe the 49ers, that might be about it. He'd be the focal point of the offense, and to just completely change how the offense would be and install him in at this point of the season, I just don't see how it happens. We're basically 3 weeks away from the first game, and this is a conversation that if this was March, I could see how it could happen. But just a player of this magnitude, like coming at the last minute here, it just does not make sense to me from a logical standpoint. And I know everyone's seen a bunch of stuff, but truthfully, just logically, I don't see how this is going to happen for the Dolphins. But yeah, I mean, take it away. Let's hear what you have to say, because I know you got a lot of thoughts on this.
So I agree that I think that this is horrible timing from the Colts. And I think that that's a big factor in all of this that no one's talking about.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor and his camp are probably pissed because they're sitting there saying, you knew you weren't going to pay me. And here I am in a depreciated market for running backs, and you're giving whatever team I decide I want to go to or that gives the best offer, you're giving them 1 week max to give me a contract. It's wrong. It's horrible. This is why the Colts are one of the worst run franchises in the NFL over the last 10, 15 years.
I think Jim Irsay, now that Dan Snyder is out, he may be the worst.
He's up there for sure. He's a bottom 5 owner, and I feel bad because the Colts have such a good fan base, and so I feel bad. But so from that standpoint, I 100% agree. Hate the timing. I think for everyone involved, they're a little PO'd at it, to be honest with you. Now, from the actual standpoint, I agree with you. After the whole Dalvin Cook thing, and they're completely different situations, and I'll get into why, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, we're getting him. I don't like following the people that already think we have him. There's just people out there that are like, here's the contract he agreed to. I know for sure. Like, no, there's only like a couple people I listen to when it comes to stuff. I have, like I said with the Dalvin Cook thing, a big person I listen to is Reason. He said from the whole entire time, they offered him $4 million, take it or leave it. They're not upping the offer. Now, you and I debated on the show if we thought they would up the offer, but it was always, here's the $4 million, take it or leave it. He chose, I'm going to go choose the Jets to be a backup running back and take double the money, which you have all the right in the world. Now, the theory is that they went radio silent when Jonathan Taylor privately asked for a trade before it was publicly announced. So the thought is they stopped the pursuit of Dalvin Cook because of this. Now, I can say this. They're different situations. Dalvin Cook's a 28-year-old running back who, yes, is really good, but I don't think ever in the last 2-3 years has ever been considered a top three at his position. He's top 10. I would say he's just a little outside the top 5, so 7th or 8th best running back in the NFL. But he's also 28. And I think that when you combine a 28-year-old running back in a depreciated market with a general manager who doesn't value them at that age like that, I think what happened is the Dalvin Cook situation. And the reason I think it's different and I feel it's different is because Barry Jackson, who I think has been great and has been on top of all of this with every running back, he said from the very beginning, and so did Reason, that with Dalvin Cook, it was $4 million, take it or leave it. They're not upping the offer. They're not giving a different offer. With this, now for 2 weeks now that I've known about this from talking with those guys that know it, it's been 2.5 weeks of the Dolphins actively changing offers and getting in negotiations with the Colts. So to me, the notion that they don't value the running back position, it's not that they don't value it. It's that they're looking for a long-term solution. That's what it tells me. Dalvin Cook was not a long-term solution. He was a 1 to maybe 2-year fix. Jonathan Taylor's a 4-year fix. He is a running back that you have, and he is now a staple of your offense for the next 4 years. Now, I know we have Tyreek and Jalen already. For me, you can't have enough superstars on offense. I think that really the offense on this team is a little overrated talent-wise, if I'm being honest with you. And I know that might be blasphemous to say, but aside from Tyreek and Jalen, which people are going to say 90% of the NFL doesn't have that much talent, really the only reason this offense succeeded last year was because Mike McDaniel's a genius. And at the end of the day, it was a stalemate. It stalled at the end because all of that speed, all of that talent meant nothing because you can't run the football and you can't have a good offense when Tua is not in there. And so the running back position, even though I agree with you that it's not the most important position, what Jonathan Taylor allows you to do is now in those situations where they figured out the passing game, they're covering up the middle of the field, you can just say, you know what, F you, we're just going to run it, and good luck trying to stop us with 6 in the box because you're trying to double Tyreek. So for me, I'm a little higher on you as far as I think that this would be a game-changing move. I do agree that I don't like the timing of it, but what I know for a fact, and I don't like to speculate, this is what I know based off of Barry Jackson, based off of stuff that I've known for a little bit, but now it's public, so I can actually say on the show, is that the Dolphins today gave an offer for Jonathan Taylor that was rejected, and they are going to offer again. That was reported a couple of hours ago by Barry Jackson. So this is fact, okay? And I think we would both agree we trust his reporting, right? It's not like okay. Reason has said that 3 names that he's heard are A-Chain, Kohu, and Agba that they're interested in. No way I'm giving up Kohu. A-Chain, we could have a conversation, but I'd really, really prefer not to. Agba for sure. I think I've been wanting to get him off the books. It doesn't make sense that he's on the team anyway. So what I can say is my guess is, this is not me knowing, my guess is if they were to have a trade, it's going to be 2 day 2 picks. Both of them I would assume would be conditional. Definitely one of them will be. And if you're going to give up a player, I know the preference right now is reportedly Emmanuel Agba that the Dolphins would like to give up. If it's a running back, it would be Jeff Wilson, but the Colts apparently want A-Chain. Okay. I'm not giving up Kohu because X next year will probably be here. And then I'm not relying on, Noah or Cam Smith and then no one in the slot. I would rather have Cam Smith, Cater, and Jalen as your corners next year. As far as contract, real quick, before I finish off, I really don't think it's that much. I don't. I think that the contract he's looking for, and this has changed a lot. I made a quick episode on the show 2 days ago saying how I didn't think it would happen because up until that point, I'd been hearing from reading things and then talking with people that the number was 16. Now I'm hearing he's willing to accept 12 to 13 base salary. What player can you get that's top 3 at their position for 12 to 13 million dollars right now? You can't. And even though, again, the position he plays is not the most important necessarily, when you have an option to get a top 3 running back, and I think that right now it's a buyer's market, right? And so he's willing to take less money. You're not going to ever get a top 3 player at their position for 12 to 13 million base salary. And so my concluding thoughts, I think it'll happen. I think it makes the Dolphins immediately a Super Bowl contender. I think it makes them the best in the division. And I think ultimately it'll get done. I don't like putting timelines because that happened with Dalvin Cook and we all sat here like idiots and waited, but I think it will get done. And I think ultimately my guess is, this is a prediction, not reporting anything. It'll be 2 day 2 picks, probably conditional, maybe conditional thirds that turn into seconds, which if we plan on being a good team, those are late. They're glorified 3rd round picks. And then I would say we're probably going to give up an Emmanuel Agba or a Jeff Wilson. And then contract-wise, probably, let's just say 5 years, $60 million with an out after 3 years. That's $12 million per year. And an out after 3 years. So essentially $40 million fully guaranteed. You give him that after 3 years, and after 3 years, you do what you want. And there's an out in the contract after 3 years. But that would be my guess. And I'm a little higher on it. I think that if you were to make this move, this automatically puts you right up there. It's you or the Chiefs. And then I guess the Bengals you could put in that conversation for the AFC.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so my thoughts, like I totally agree with you that it is totally different. He is 24. The problem like I mainly have with running backs is there's just a wall. Like at a certain age, they just are unable to, like, look at Zeke, he
right.
One of the best running backs, and they hit a wall.
Yeah.
But so here's kind of my trying to just be logical here. Like I agree with everyone on this. Like everyone says the salary cap is a myth. It's not real. And it's not. Like you could restructure, but eventually the bell, I can't remember the saying, but eventually you have to take your L. Like eventually there will be a year like the Rams where the salary cap apocalypse, as Omar Kelly put it, will come. It's eventually going to come. And when that happens, the Dolphins are going to be horrible. Like we're going to have to, hopefully, logically, we would then sell off our assets, whatever we have. And unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of good players are going to get traded, but hopefully we could recoup our assets. But eventually, like we're going to have to take our L for a year. And adding Taylor now, it would be a great move for years 1 and 2, but then like who knows where the team will be in 3 years. And there's still a lot of questions about this team, like even at the quarterback position and other positions. Like there's still so many questions left to be answered. And I agree with you. It makes the offense probably the second best. If third, top 3 for sure.
Right.
Probably the second best. And yeah, it would add another dynamic to this offense. Like you said, when teams go out wide, try to get physical with Tyreek and Waddle, it would totally change things, because then we got a guy up the middle who's going to just be able to run all over you.
All right, now let me try to flip you real quick, because I'm going to try to do my magic, because again, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. I hate the fact that nowadays it's like if you disagree, it's it's right. Let me try to flip you. So number one, I would agree. The cap situation, you have Javon, who you have to pay next year. You have Jalen, who you eventually need to pay. You can wait, but the longer you wait, the higher the price. And if Tua, everything goes well, if things don't go well, then none of this matters, right? But if things go well, then you have Tua. But here's the thing. So Xavier Howard, not guaranteed money next year. You can get rid of him. Tyreek Hill, I know people talk about Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill probably has 2 more years here. I think, honestly, after this year and next year, they'll probably move off of him. So the Jalen Waddle money, it's not like you're going to have to pay both of them, okay? So eventually that money for Jalen Waddle will just be for Jalen Waddle, okay? On the defensive side, yes, there's Jalen Ramsey and there's X, but after 2 years, after this year, next year, you're relatively going to be able to get out of the money for both of them, okay? So there's that. On top of it, with Jonathan Taylor, not only this year, but for years to come, again, it's like being in a buyer's market. If you can get this now, though, get it for cheap, because who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen next year when all of these running backs are up for contracts and they're competing with each other, the Saquons, the Josh Jacobs. So again, I agree with you. If you're paying him 15, 16, it's like, whoa, a lot of money. But if we can get him for that 12, 13 million, again, I just think that you're going to have to pay a lot of money in the future. I get that. But it's one of those theories where it's like, if you're doing a cheat day with food, I'm not just going to have like a thing of popcorn or a bag of chips. Like, I'm going for it. And at the end of the day, for me personally, if I don't think that it's going to be, you have to get rid of all these players. I think you'll be able to keep a core in place. I don't think it'll be like 2019. I think you'll still be able to keep the Javons, the Caters, the Jalen Phillips, Jalen Waddle, Tua in place, your core. But at the end of the day, I would much rather look back on it 3 years from now and say, at least the Dolphins did everything they could. And if that means we won a Super Bowl, then I'll take my lumps for the next couple of years. And if it means we didn't win a Super Bowl, I can't use the excuse, well, we didn't try everything. I would rather them exhaust all the options rather than just be like, we're okay with it. And I think, again, if it was a move like a Dalvin Cook for like this type of money, it'd be like, okay. But the fact that it's this caliber player and the fact that you could get rid of money with Emmanuel Ogbah or Cedric Wilson, I just think that, again, I don't think it'll be that bad. I don't think you'll need to be getting rid of everyone. I do think that you'll definitely, it won't be the greatest cap situation. But at the end of the day, I would rather them go full out to try this, get a running back for cheap right now that's locked in for the next 4 years. And on top of that, if Brandon Shore and them are okay with it and they think that they can manage it, or they think that it's a smart decision, I trust them that that's a smart decision, because they don't normally just throw around money in a bad way. Obviously, when you have good players, you're going to have to spend more, but they're normally more frugal than other teams. They're not going to do stupid things with money. They might spend a lot, but they're not going to do stupid things. And so if they're going to be okay with it, after knowing how much Chris Grier really doesn't like the running back position, that tells me that they really believe that this is a good choice.
Yeah, and 100%. Like, I've sat through watching this team my whole life. I've seen some really bad teams. And at the end of the day, just getting one Super Bowl would make everything worth it. If we got a Super Bowl, I don't care who we sign.
Let's get a home playoff game. Let's get some energy. Like, we need again, I just think we need this, and I think we can both agree. You can agree that if we were to get Jonathan Taylor, again, it would be a letdown for me if we didn't win the division and probably make an AFC championship. It would be a letdown. I'd be like, you didn't achieve.
That would be the bar. Then
so
that's
again,
what's scary.
Is it worth it? Like for me right now, I'm a fringe division winner. I think that we're probably a top 5 team. Is $12 million, which is, again, I would be okay with anything under 15. Is 12 to $15 million, is it worth, meaning you have a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl and win your division? I think yes, because I don't think that right now on the market, there is a move that you could make for that amount of money that gives you that much of a boost. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. And the other thing, like you were saying, like that no one wants to talk about is like they had a plan in place. Like, and then Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook to a degree, even becoming available, like change everything because they kept this money open.
Correct.
For a reason. Yeah. Like they had, I think personally, is, in case someone gets hurt in training camp, then they can still go out and do something. And look, I mean, we're here, like, and Stephen Ross is never afraid to cut a check.
Dude, and who knows? Yeah, exactly. Who knows how much he's willing to do right now, right? Like he might be willing to, he's always willing to spend money to maybe help the future and stuff like that. So, again, I don't think necessarily it's, if we're talking 16 to 18, it's like, okay, no. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking what I'm hearing from reliable people, not just people that throw out that they have sources and they're like, I have sources. And he already, like, there was a person that said he was getting checked on by trainers in Indy, like to get a medical or whatever it was. They're trying to see if he passed the physical. Is that what it's called? And it's like, I was told by 2 people that I reached out to that like that's complete BS. He's in Philly right now because he was asked to travel there with the team. So like, again, so I don't listen to everyone, but the people I trust have said that the number's under 15. Now, if they get proved to be wrong, then I still am going to trust them. But I mean, they're only going off of what they know, and they typically have a good track record.
Yeah, I just think there's like still a couple of problems, like mainly the one being the compensation to the Colts. Like if I had to guess, honestly, I think where he's going to end up, if not the Colts, I think probably the most likely outcome is he's playing for the Colts week 1, is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they have the assets to move from. They still have all their picks for the next couple years, and they have absolutely nothing on offense. I mean, they have receivers, but I don't know who's really going to be throwing them the ball. Right. Baker Mayfield doesn't seem like an answer. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the Kyle Trask show in a few weeks. And what better way to just help Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield than Jonathan Taylor? And they could offer a lot better than we can. Look, in a vacuum, I'd love to see him on the Dolphins. It'd be great. I mean, like you said, it add another layer to this team that was desperately missed towards the end of the season last year. But man, just logically, I don't think it's going to be able to happen. There's just like too many hoops and it's too late in the season. If this was March, like then I'd be a lot more optimistic that something could happen. But just the way it's happened, like, and it's the Colts' fault. Like they're just a crappy organization, and they don't care about their players. Jim Irsay is a character, to say the least.
Yeah. Dude,
but so I'm sorry for everyone who was really hoping. I'm going to throw some cold water on the situation here.
No, dude, it's your opinion. I think we can both agree that it's your opinion, but let's be honest about it. It's like, if it happens, I think everyone's going to be excited. Even if they don't agree with it, I think everyone will just be like, you know what? Nah, I'll just ride with it and see what happens. I don't think it's going to be like, you're going to be like, oh, we got Jonathan Taylor. I hate this fan base. I hate the fans. I hate the team. I'm not a Dolphin fan. You know what I mean? It's just your opinion of what you think is right.
No, if it happens, I'll be excited. But like you said, then the bar has like moved to.
The bar has moved up for sure.
We got to be in the AFC Championship, if not this year, next year, because the chip, like we're already all in. But then, like, I don't know what's above all in. I mean, we called up, asked for another 13 million, and said, put it behind. We're doubling down here. We're going for it all. Like everything on the table. it's this year or next year. We're here. And
Right.
another thing that was just kind of frightening, like as I was doing my, that I just want to kind of touch on real quick, we were doing our roster, our 53
Yeah,
man
that's
roster.
coming. That's coming. Yeah.
My God, the lack of depth on this team. Until like you see it on paper, I was like, whew, geez, man.
For me, at certain positions, I was just like, is that really like I had a hard time doing it. There's certain positions, I mean, again, like, honestly, the positions that it was mainly like for me, it was linebacker, and then interior defensive line. Those are the two positions that I was like, oh, like there's not really much here.
Yeah, there's after like
Those
the
were my
starters,
two.
there's not many guys who I would say would be like all those guys are pretty much below replacement level in my mind. Meaning you
Right.
can go out and sign someone, any like random NFL average player, and they'd be just as good
Right.
or better.
But anyway, that leads us into the game that's going to decide who makes that 53, which is this game coming up.
Yeah, and so let's go back here. It's been a few days now, but the preseason game too. Honestly, that should have been like the sign that this week was going to be a roller coaster. Just from the opening play, as everyone saw, interception off the back. And honestly, like the first two offensive plays, I was like, well, this is like, now that it's over, I was like, this is good. This is why I wanted like the first team Tua specifically to get reps, because the rust was clearly there, and you didn't want that to be against the Chargers, the first game that was 5 bullets. So I'm glad, that got out of the way, but obviously when Tua does anything, he is like he's just
most talked about thing ever.
A powder keg. I don't understand how everyone has an opinion on him. It's like, I can't think of another NFL player in even recent memory
not that I can think of now.
It's wild. It's truly wild.
It was a bad throw. And then they responded with it with essentially a 99-yard touchdown drive. So let's just like chill real quick. Again, he made a mistake. It was his first time out there. I'm sure he had the jitters. I'm sure he's, a little nervous. But what I gained from it, I actually really like the second preseason game. The willingness to run the football. It's not necessarily about running the football. Like, yes, they're running basic defense and offense, but the willingness to run the football. Tua's arm looked a little more lively, just with like certain throws and the velocity he had. He seemed calm and in control. I love that he is willing, from reports we've seen at practice, he's willing to throw the dump offs to the running backs. That's something that, a lot of these big name quarterbacks do a lot, actually. Everyone thinks they're just bombs away. But if you actually look at like someone like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, they throw a lot at the line of scrimmage to their running backs because, they'll get blitzed and people think that's the way to respond to them. So I like that he seemed like he knew exactly what he was doing. He seemed in control. I loved watching the fall because like we talked about, none of the hits last year, well, actually technically the Cincinnati one, but the first one and then the one at Green Bay just came from him falling. And then the one against the Cincinnati Bengals had to do with, his weight and just being smaller, but he definitely looked bigger. Yes, some of that's going to be fat. And I know with the whole Ryan Clark thing, which is stupid, we don't necessarily need to get into it, but he's going to be a little heavier. He needs to add a little bit of fat. He needs to add a little bit of muscle, because for those who don't know, as the season goes along, he's not going to be that big. That's why with the Bryce Youngs in the draft, we said, dude, if you're this weight now, you're going to lose about 10 pounds. Yeah. And Nick Hicks, his trainer, said he's at about 225. So we're talking 215 during the season. So you almost have to overshoot it to get it to where you want it to be. But I thought he looked bigger. I thought he looked in command. And then just with the rest of the team, the Vic Fangio defense, even in preseason, the fact that they've only given up 9 points that they've been responsible for. I know we had a pick six and a punt return touchdown, but they've only given up 9 points in 2 games. I know it's just the preseason and the scores don't matter, but at the end of the day, if you're a third string or second string, your job is to not let them score if you want to make the roster. And I think that everyone's done a good job. And all things are equal. When third strings are going against third strings, it's equal territory. And they've done a good job. So ultimately, a lot to be encouraged for, and I'm excited because the thought right now from McDaniel is that in the third preseason game, he wants the starters to be out there not a full half, but longer than they were this past week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what he said that in the press conference. He said, for Tua and all the starters, the thought, unless things change with practice, like it depends on how good these guys look, but the thought is to play them more than a series, but less than a half. So, I think last week the goal was to have them out there for a series, but because of the first throw being an interception, it changed things. My guess would be Tua is going to be out there for about 2, maybe 3 drives, depending, if the first 2 drives are both touchdowns, then but I would say similar to last year, 2, maybe 3 drives for both of them. And that'll probably be maybe a little over a quarter of football would be my guess.
Yeah. And I did also see that the Jags are planning on playing about a quarter and a half.
It'll be a good test. It'll be a good test.
Good to watch. But yeah, my just quick thoughts real quick about the last game, and then we'll move on. So honestly, the player I was most impressed with, David Long.
Dude.
Great. Yeah, he looked great. And then the O-line depth I have here was just appalling. God. And then again, going through the 53, like just looking at it on paper, it is tough out there. Channing Tindall, I thought looked good. And then, so what exactly happened with Mike White? If you could tell me, because I didn't get a chance to watch it play by play, what happened and how bad was it, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until you literally just told me, and that makes me sad now. Yeah, that was horrible. The fact that we dealt with concussions last year and your second string and third string both went out for concussions. It's just that Skylar Thompson came back in. That's horrible. That's not good at all. But basically what happened is Skylar Thompson was in there. I don't know what these judges, these refs do, where they're called spotters, and they're supposed to spot like abnormal behavior, gross motor instability. He got hit, Skylar Thompson, and like 2 plays later, they took him out of the game. So Mike White came in there, and Mike White got hit on a pass. I think it was an incompletion, and basically kind of had like his head shoved into the ground. And then there was no, like, he only left the game because Skylar Thompson got cleared. It's not like he left for a concussion. And then apparently, like the day after, they were like, something's not normal. Let's test you for a concussion. And he had one. So like, I don't know, dude. It's like you're playing a preseason game. It's only been 2 games and you're not even playing the whole entire time. And we already have 2 of our quarterbacks that are dealing with this. Now, what scares me is the fact that because of what happened with the Dolphins last year, are these spotters and these refs going to be much less lenient?
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't even say that part. Are they going to be much more strict on this with the Dolphins? Are they going to see literally anything? Like what if
that's what they did with Teddy Bridgewater last year?
That's what happened. Like Teddy Bridgewater looks like a giraffe all the time. Teddy Bridgewater, when he gets up from sacks, I don't know if you've ever seen him, but he gets up and he like uses his head to get up. I don't know if you've ever seen a giraffe get up, but when they get up with their head, and that's what Teddy Bridgewater does. And that's what happened last year, is like he didn't have a concussion, but he got up with his head and like they thought he had a concussion. And so my thing is it going to be like to where if they trip over a blade of grass or something, they're going to be like, you have a concussion? That's what worries me. Because, with Skylar Thompson, it's like you got taken out and got put back in, and you didn't have concussion, but then there you have then you have the people in the media that are going to be like, well, why'd you put him back in the game? Well, he didn't have a concussion. But then with Mike White, it's like, again, you get put in there for a little bit, and I want to say that to all the people who question Mike McDaniel and them's like how much they care about their players. This is 2 instances now where the NFL has missed and the Dolphins have had to cover their own asses, and they've had to be like, hey, I know you guys think we don't care about our players, but this is 2 times now with Tua at Green Bay and Mike White, where if it wasn't for us, he would be playing still, but we chose to examine him for concussion, even though we were in the playoff race. We chose to because we care about his health. So I don't know. It's weird. It's just like really weird. And I just hope that in the season, it's not like, hey, remember what happened with the Dolphins last year? Remember, spotters, every
Yeah,
time you see something, you need to, even if you're not sure, just call it. It's like,
exactly. Because they don't.
wow.
It's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
like, I'm not one to. I try not to complain about the refs. Like you ask any fan on the planet, the refs have screwed them over
Refs
for
suck.
years
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it just needs to be a flat. Like every team needs to be judged the same, and the Dolphins shouldn't be penalized because of Tua just having concussions. Like the backups shouldn't have to then be judged like they can't even do anything. This as soon as they hit the ground, their head touches the ground, then they have a concussion automatically just because the spotters are scared of their job if another player gets hurt on their watch. But yeah, let's move along real quick. We'll just touch on some other like news with the Dolphins, and then we'll get into the third preseason game. A couple things. We did sign a linebacker, Alexander Johnson. I don't know too much about him. I'll come right out and say, I'll be honest. I don't really have an opinion on the signing, but I assume he makes a 53. I'd be pretty shocked if he doesn't. Hopefully he could play special teams, would be my guess. Yeah, I like it. Still staying active, looking to just add some depth. I think it was needed signing, like you said. We were thin at linebacker.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think if anything, it might be practice squad. He's from the Broncos, so he's worked with. I'm pretty sure he's within this scheme before with Fangio. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at his past. He tried out with Seattle. He was injured. He tore his pecs in 2021. He was out for the season. Got moved to IR, and then he tried out with Seattle last year in October. So this was after the season started. And then he was on their practice squad. So I don't think it's a starter. I think it's just going to be someone practice squad. But I do like the move because it gives you someone who's familiar with the system, and it gives you,
young guys
a little experience, see what he has. But I mean, he's also 31. I'm pretty sure. So I don't think it's anything major. I think it's just like just a move to bring a guy in, another camp body, stuff like that.
Yeah. And then other stuff that happened over the week. Devon Achane suffered an injury, shoulder, correct?
Shoulder, yeah. I've been told that there's the only injury right now that's going to bleed into the season, not counting Jalen, because we all know that, are Nick Needham and Robert Jones. They'll probably get put on IR.
Robert Jones, suffered an
injury. He'll be out. Yeah, he'll probably start on IR because that'll free up a spot, probably for someone like Liam, and then or Lester Cotton, and then he'll come back on, but he'll probably start on IR along with. He'll probably start on IR, and then Nick Needham will probably start on the PUP list.
Yeah. So that any other news that you want to touch on? Injuries? Anything?
Not really.
That's all I got.
I mean, Devon Achane, if I'm being honest, speaking on him real quick, he hasn't impressed me that much. I know that may be blasphemous to say, but I just like he's out there with the same guys that Ahmed is, and Ahmed was outperforming. Now Devon's way more talented. And if that 65-yard run that Ahmed had was Devon Achane, it would have been a touchdown. It wouldn't have even been close. But I'm not really sure what's going on with Ahmed. I know he got injured. Coming out of the draft, he was my fourth running back. But I put in my evaluation, I'm reading it right now. I said Ahmed or Devon Achane is going to be a great addition for a coach who knows how to utilize speed. Little did I know I was talking about our own coach, Mike McDaniel. And then I put in it, I said, but what's the value of a running back who is 5'9", 185, and you're not going to use him as a 3-down back. And I don't care how willing he is as a blocker. When Fred Warner's running full speed at you, what can you do? So it's a little concerning to me that he's only played very few snaps in 2 preseason games, and he already has a shoulder injury. And it wasn't necessarily from a hard hit. It was just getting landed on. So not necessarily great to me. I still love the talent, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal because he hasn't shown me enough for me to be like, man, it's a big loss for the Dolphins. I know that sounds horrible that because a player's injured, but I just really don't think it's that big of a deal. I think, again, it's just the name that is a big deal, but not actually the impact it'll have.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's touch on the third and final preseason game here.
Let's do it.
This is it. The last game of the preseason camp officially ended today. And yeah, we're ready to get up to Jacksonville, finish the preseason. What are some stuff you're going to be watching for this game? Anything you'd like to see? Mainly, like you said, this is pretty much, in my mind, a battle for who's going to be the last guys on the roster and which guys will make the practice squad or will be signed elsewhere. Everyone knows the stakes of the third preseason. Used to be the fourth preseason game.
Right.
Nothing really too exciting happens.
You're filling out the bottom 15 of your roster tomorrow or whenever you're playing. That's what you're doing. You're filling out the bottom 15. So yeah, what you start off, what are you looking forward to?
Well, if the starters are going to play as much as is expected, just what I would like to see is sort of more the offense from the second drive. And we were doing very vanilla stuff, but it was highly efficient. Like they moved the ball efficiently, and I think that's what this offense tries to be. Any Shanahan offense is that it just wants to be super efficient, and that's why Jimmy G was able to make a career for himself in the NFL that I think is going to unravel here without without Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. So yeah, I would just like to see the offense be more efficient. I'd like to mainly see everyone stay healthy. As much as this preseason has gone on, it feels like every day there's another injury. There's something else that happens to this team. So first and foremost, I'd like to see health, and then I'd like to just see the offense continue to be efficient. And defensively, I'd like to see just some more of the rookies step up. I think last year we had Cater, who came alive and was a serious contributor pretty much the entire season. You'd like to hope at least one rookie can do that, and that's probably going to be more likely to happen on the defensive side of the ball. So who's going to step up? Who's going to say that they should be fighting for playing time and get some playing time? I honestly don't have an idea who it could be, but I'd like to see someone. And then lastly, just the final spots that are still up for grabs, mainly safety. Is it going to be Brandon Jones or Deshaun Elliott? I think it's probably going to be Elliott. It's your day one starter as camp has progressed. I'd like to see him out there and just he goes out and grabs a spot. I don't think it should be given. I'd like to see them take it just because, honestly, I think it's going to be given. I don't think anyone's done anything to say, hey, I need to be the starter here. But what about you?
Yeah, so with I think Elliott's come on lately. I think that I would agree with you in that sentiment. I think he's going to be your day one starter, especially Brandon. He just got the red non-contact jersey taken off. So I don't know the comfort level right there, putting a guy who hasn't had a lot of contact in the starting lineup right away. So I would agree with you there. So offense, obviously with the first team, commitment to running the football. I want to see commitment to running the football. I want to see how this left guard position is shaping up. I need to see better from Connor Williams. I thought he was one of the worst performers last week. He had 2 high snaps. Your main job as a center is to snap the ball. It's like catching a football as a wide receiver. So fix those. Austin Jackson, I did not think had a good day. A lot of people were super high on him, and I went back and watched the All-22. I watched the condensed gameplay on NFL Plus, and it was, there was a play where Tua had to do more jiu-jitsu because Austin Jackson just got rammed into him. Like all the guy did was bull rushed him. Lester Cotton, I want to see what happens there because I think it's a legit battle right now with him and Liam Eichenberg. And then Kendall Lamb too. I thought Kendall Lamb had a great game. So I want to see him and Isaiah win. Tua, just be decisive like he was. Again, I don't really need to see much from him. Let him get out the jitters. Tight end wise, it's going to be interesting to see what we see from Julian Hill. I think he's the clear tight end 2 right now. Elijah Higgins, you're fighting for a roster spot, so let's see something from you. And then let's see. I'm trying to think with the running backs, Chris Brooks fighting for a roster spot. And then defensively, something to keep an eye on is how's this defensive line look without Christian Wilkins? Because right now out of camp, they're doing great. They're stuffing the run. They're doing great without him. And that's not good for him. I'm just going to say that. I'm not saying I don't want Christian Wilkins, but the longer he's not in there and the better that they look without him and the more comfortable they look to where it's like, dude, we look relatively close to what we did without you and you're asking for 20 million. Maybe, are you sure you don't want to take the 16 we're offering you? So that's something to keep an eye on. Eli Apple, I think, is now your cornerback 2 after last week in practice. So that's something to keep an eye on. Not that Noah's played bad. I just think that Eli Apple, hindsight 2020, it's always made a little more sense. He has experience playing in the Super Bowl and the playoffs, makes a little more sense. I want to see, I think that at linebacker with Aubrey Miller and then some of these edge rushers, the Malik Reeds, the Cameron Goods, the Mitchell Gudes, this is going to be a huge game for you to make the roster because right now I'm not sure if they do some of them. So it's going to be huge for them. But ultimately, biggest thing, no injuries and just go out there and play clean football.
Yeah. And then how do we match up against the Jags? Because their division's so bad, they're going to be in the AFC playoffs. And it's more likely than not that we see them, that they could be, honestly, the wild card matchup. Just as things stand realistically, I think we probably get in as a wild card and then possibly go into Jacksonville or Buffalo. So how do we match up? Because this could be a matchup down the road, even though we do not play them this season.
Well, I think right now, regardless of injury, I think the Dolphins are the best team in their division. I did not. Did you watch the Bills last week?
I did not.
Oh my God, dude. I know it's just preseason, but their offense, their starters on offense and defense were out there for like almost a full quarter, and they were losing 14-0 after the quarter, and their defense gave up to Jaylen Warren, who's from OSU. He's not a starter. And they gave up like a 65-yard touchdown run. The starters, full first team. So they did not look good at all. They looked out of sorts. They couldn't run the football. The offensive line looked bad. So if we can run the football, that's why I say, like, if Jonathan Taylor's on this team, it's a wrap. But even right now, I would give the edge maybe as long as, obviously with Tua staying healthy. But getting back to your point, the big thing for here is you're going against a real quarterback now. So let's see, because you went against Desmond Ridder and you went against CJ Stroud, who's a rookie. So you're going against a real quarterback.
Didn't even play.
Right. So I want to see. He didn't even play. But you're going against a real like big name quarterback. So let's see how they look. But the Jags are a good team. I think that even regardless of the division, they're a good team. They got good players, big players everywhere, especially on the D line and O line. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up, not having played each other a bunch of times in joint practice. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, and I know, you're wanting to recap training camp because today was the last day of camp open to media and fans and stuff. So, they're able to actually install a lot of the stuff they'll be doing this season. Overall, good camp. I was really happy to see with the defense that they were limiting the big plays. I think you're starting to see the offense come into their own, the willingness to run the football. Tua looks better. He's been playing better. He looks more in command. Ultimately, my only concerns really are at center. Honestly, out of all the positions on the O-line, my biggest concern right now is center, which is not ideal. And then safety. Other than that, I know people will say tight end, but I think overall I feel pretty good. This is the best I've felt about the Dolphins roster probably in a long time. And I think that, obviously we have to see it to believe it, but I really think that this team can do a lot of good things coming up, especially now with that defense, the way it looks.
It's funny because I'm not the opposite, but this may be like a bit of recency bias for me. But I just remember like last year coming out of camp and this may have just been me personally, but I was like so optimistic. Like I believed in the offense. Like I was like, oh, we're gonna have a great top 10 offense for the first time in my life. Like it's gonna be so much better. And like I'm kind of like just a bit lower, I guess. Like this camp not disappointing, but just as compared to where I was last year with this team, like I'm a little more just cool on them, like temperature wise. I'm not as excited as I was coming out of last year. Like last year, I knew we were gonna absolutely just destroy the Patriots week one, who were sort of a dumpster fire on offense, and I don't feel as strongly convicted this year. And the first few games are just absolutely brutal. So I think we need to be strong out of the gate. So I would say that overall from camp, not as excited as you are. Sort of more concerned about depth, and that is partially because of injuries, and partially just because of how this roster is structured. Whether it's so
that's a legitimate concern too. I mean, what everything you're saying, I'm feeling. I'm using it with the pretext that at the end of the day, injury on this team is always going to be. I could always say that because realistically, it's like, how realistically, like injury is always going to be concerned.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, like, based off of I honestly think it's a good thing, to be honest, that there isn't that much hype. I think the Dolphins right now are actually surprisingly under the radar, and I don't like that there's a lot of hype. I think that I love the fact that there's a lot less hype right now from the fan base. I know that sounds weird, but I think a lot of that comes from the fact that there haven't been big plays. It's just two juggernauts on offense and defense just battling it out. But again, I completely agree with you. It's not necessarily that I don't feel it. It's just, I guess, like letting it get to me, might be a little different, but I mean, everything you just said is completely valid. And I think a lot of people feel that way with, the depth and stuff. But ultimately, you can probably have that concern a lot of years, unless you're like the Philadelphia Eagles,
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't even think of this, but to your point, like part of the reason that I may be like not as optimistic is because the defense is better. Like last year, the defense
way better.
We didn't realize it, but the defense sucked last year. Like in training camp, like the offense was running all over. That should have been a sign.
Dude,
but I say offense is so good.
I say it all the time. I say people always say, if Tua stayed healthy, even if Tua didn't stay healthy last year, think about this. There's 32 teams. We had the 8th worst defense. So we were in the bottom 4th of the NFL in defense, in points scored, which is the only statistic that matters. Nothing else matters when it comes to defense. So we were bottom 4th of the NFL, and we still did what we did. So like all those people, to me, Vic Fangio was the biggest addition we made this offseason. And I do, though. I really think that's a real thing that people are kind of like, wait, we don't see Tyreek having a 65-yard touchdown every day. What's going on? The offense is struggling. It's like, no, they just are going against a competent defense that's not being called by Josh Boyer, who that I was just never a fan of.
Yeah. I don't think many people were. I'm still puzzled why they decided to keep him. But yeah, and then another thing I kind of just want to say real quick, like more division wise, like one team in this division, just because it is so good, someone's gonna implode. And I hope it's not us, but like one team is going to have a bad year. Could be the Bills, could be the Jets. It's probably most likely to be the Patriots. But yeah, like this division, it only got better from last year. And then through camp, like each team's camp, and we got an inside look at the Jets this year. It's going to be tough, man. And I realized it before camp, but even just everything I'm seeing now, like I think it's going to be a real challenge to win this division this year.
It will. But I like that because then you're battle tested.
Yeah. Yes. Normally this division, like one team is a big favorite for the past 20 years. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year.
So next episode, just to confirm, we're going to be going over our 53-man projection of what we think it's going to be before Monday. We'll do it. And then we're going to we'll be discussing this preseason game.
Yeah, we'll
Maybe
do that.
even have Jonathan Taylor news. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know.
Hopefully. But yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll do another episode, and we could do kind of the season outlook, and then we'll do a more detailed kind of look into week 1.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's the plan. You know,
awesome,
kind of give what we think about the Chargers and everything, and yeah, I mean, guys, not much time left, so get your affairs in order. We're about to go off to battle soon. But everyone, thank you for listening. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Love to hear from you guys. We appreciate all the support from me, Anthony, and Joel. Thank you very much for listening, and go Dolphins.
Dolphins